Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more relationship stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting a like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story is from a throwaway account who says, I, 26 female, missed an important funeral. And now I think my 5-year relationship with my partner, 28 male, might be over. Before everything happened between us, we were solid. I thought this was my forever. We've lived together for the past 3 years and I've always loved him and the way we supported and helped each other. He used to say we were family and we would always look after each other. This year was my final year in uni. To get my, and it says March, M-A-R-C-H, which is like a master's degree to become an architect. Also, I've briefly looked, I'm not sure if you pronounce it that way either, and my Part 2 exemption to become an architect. In March this year, the final printed copy of my research project was due. Basically, a culmination of the past 7 years of my education. Unfortunately, in this time, my partner's grandmother passed away. This woman basically raised him when both his parents couldn't deal. They were incredibly close. In her final years, she got dementia, but she always remembered him and their little inside jokes. He loved her so much, probably more than anyone else in the whole world. Over those few weeks after she passed away, I tried to spend a lot of time with him. I took him to the archdiocese and we lit candles and walked through the gardens and talked about his grandmother. His friends came up from a visit that weekend and I spent the weekend with them to keep him happy, even though I should have been working on finishing my research project. I took care of him all that week, letting him rest and try to mourn. Unfortunately, his boss is a huge prick. It was a struggle for him to get any time off to properly rest and take care of himself. His grandmother's funeral was scheduled to be 4 days before my research project hand-in date. The problem with this is that I still needed to get everything printed and do final editing, and the funeral was happening on the other side of the country. This was a 200-page research project. I worked my ass off to get everything together beforehand so that I could go with him. But in the end, I didn't have the time, and the reality was that I was editing and adding to the project up until 2 days before my hand-in. I did Skype with him in the mornings and evenings so we could talk about how he was doing. After the funeral, he returned home, but he was incredibly sad. After my hand-in, I tried to talk with him about it. He showed me some pictures and I read the eulogy that his sister read at the funeral. I cried a bit after reading the eulogy, and that's when my boyfriend got angry. He said that I didn't have a right to cry or be upset because it was his grandmother and because I had chosen to forego the funeral. Things have just gone downhill since then. It's been 2 months. On top of my research project, I also had my regular work to finish over the past 2 months. It's just been a very busy time in my life. My boyfriend went through a similar experience the year before, where I helped him and supported him through his work, and he tried to help me and support me through mine. But the entire time, he was cold and distant. At one point, he even admitted to me that he didn't want to help me, and he couldn't be bothered. So this all came to a head recently, when I confronted him about how he's been distant and the way he's been treating me, ignoring me all day, being rude, distant, and sometimes downright nasty to me. He basically said he can't forgive me for missing his grandmother's funeral, and he doesn't think he ever will. At this point, I will admit that I lost it. I was put in a situation where I had to choose between my relationship and my education, and it's only in hindsight that I see it. I was overwhelmed and upset that I hit my head against the wall hard and screamed, but only because I've never been in so much emotional pain in my life. I didn't know how to handle it, so I handled it poorly. Since then, things have not gotten better. We've tried to talk it over calmly, but a few days ago, he lost it and went on this rant about how terrible his life is and how hurt he is. There was a lot more going on with his family than I knew, including that his father used to beat him badly and his grandmother would protect him. I never knew this about his father, though I knew they had an incredibly strained relationship. I've suggested therapy, but he has said he's not up for it. We talked about a solution and he thinks I need to go back to my home country by myself for a few weeks and be with my family, and to leave him alone for that time so that he can think and mourn alone. He also said that he is thinking about moving out of our flat at the end of the summer to go live with some friends, but he said that he wants us to stay together. I think at this point the relationship might be over. I don't know how to show him that I'm sorry I missed a funeral, but there was no other option for me. I love this guy so much, but if this is how our relationship is going to be, I don't think I can do it. I need perspective on this issue. maybe some advice on how to apologize properly, and if not, maybe some advice on how to end the long-term relationship. Me in this one, I can get he's grieving in this situation, but I also think he's being unfair. OP in this one sounded like they was being incredibly understanding and supportive to OP throughout this. And he's just put OP in a really difficult position in this one, and that, he said he can't forgive her for not attending the funeral. There's no way coming back in that case, is there? And like I said, I get people grieve in all sorts of different ways, but it's still not right when, quoting OP here, ignoring me all day, being rude, distant, and sometimes downright nasty to me. You can't grieve someone by being abusive to your own partner, someone that you love. And I know many people who would be like the partner in this situation that would get upset if someone didn't attend a funeral. And rightly or wrongly, I just see things a lot more differently over the last few years when I've been to too many funerals, to be quite honest, and come to recognize that they are for the living. And that's just my perspective on this. Whether you disagree or agree with that is, it's okay. But Emma's 28 says your SO needs to recognize that you can't move a graduate thesis deadline. This was the culmination of higher education that you've been working towards for 7 years. That is not the kind of thing you blow off, even for a funeral. It sounds like you were very supportive the entire time and took time out of a very stressful period in your life to comfort him. He needs to recognize this, and hopefully he will, once the grief lessens. I don't think you need to apologize. I think some space, you going to visit family, isn't a bad thing. But if he still wants to move in with friends after you return, then he's basically saying he can't forgive you. Personally, I would tell him he needs to go to therapy to process his grief in a healthy way. The way he's lashing out to you isn't fair. And if he isn't willing to work through it, then it's over. Thrice Fried Chip says, I would suggest that if he is going through this emotional turmoil over his grandmother, he should leave the house. By all means, if he needs space, he should take it, but you should not have to leave your home or the country for him to grieve. STD says, if he can't forgive you, there can be no relationship. And if his conditions for grieving involve you moving out, then yes, it's over. If he doesn't forgive you, then in every disagreement that comes up, he's going to pull out this incident to bludgeon you. It's also clear that he's never fully opened up to you. The fact that you only just found out how bad his childhood was is a bad sign. It's the sort of thing that you talk about with people you are close to because it helps to explain how you would deal with the world. It's a level of vulnerability that leads to a deeper level of trust. And always choose education over relationships. SOs come and go. The only permanent relationship in your life is with yourself. Cindercat says he's grieving and unrealistic. Did he expect you to sacrifice your whole future? You mentioned you did all these other things to comfort him, so I don't think it's fair for him to treat you like this. Life happens, and part of being a good partner is understanding that. I think because he was so traumatized by his dad, the death of his grandmother is resurfacing all those other feelings. It probably feels to him in some roundabout way that you don't care he was abused. Of course, this is totally irrational, but I think it means it's over. Don't blame yourself. He has issues and refuses to fix them through therapy. Walk Through This says he is misdirecting the pain of his grief at you. He's blaming you for the pain he feels. I really think he's out of line. If you had attended the funeral, his grandmother wouldn't be any less dead. He's not really being very mature. He's also handing you a problem that has no solution. He didn't have a time machine to go back and do things differently. Again, not very mature. He's entitled to his pain, but he's not entitled to treat you like shit as a result. Honestly, he should be the one to leave if he can't deal with it, but in all reality, if he's not willing to own up to his own failings in this, and there are plenty, then you can't stay with him to be his emotional punching bag. And one more comment from Jalapeno Cheese, who says in quotes, I was so overwhelmed that I hit my head against the wall, hard, and screamed, but only because I've never been in so much emotional pain in my life. I didn't know how to handle it, so I handled it poorly. Ben says, everyone else has addressed the other points, so I'm just going to mention this one. This is not an okay or healthy way to deal with an emotionally difficult situation, especially when you are talking about issues in a relationship. I think you know that. You need to develop better coping skills in some way, whether that is therapy or something else. It needs to be addressed for your own sake, whether you stay with this guy or not. This is not even remotely an attack or saying that you were wrong, just that you need some kind of help in this area. So firstly, OP edited the post and they said, a lot of people have been mentioning this. I did ask for an extension from my academic advisor and he told me that the school does not grant extensions under any circumstances. The way my university handles mitigating circumstances for graduate projects is that they expect you to turn in whatever work you've completed by the deadline, and then they allow you to resubmit the completed project at the next grading cycle. However, this would mean that I would not be allowed to graduate this year, would have to wait until the next graduation cycle. Also, I should mention that we usually return to my home country for a few weeks in the summer to visit my family. The trip wasn't planned or set for this summer, but we had discussed the possibility of it. That's why it's not completely unreasonable request that I go home for a while. Then OP comes in with their update and they say, I just wanted to first say thank you very much for all the advice. It was really helpful. It made me feel like less of a terrible person and made me realize that my boyfriend is still mourning the loss of his grandmother. My SO and I had a long discussion the night I posted for advice on Reddit, and we agreed that we wanted to be together but that something needed to change in our relationship. We set some basic ground rules. We both agreed to start seeing separate therapists, him for his grief and troubles with his dad, and me for my lack of confidence and stress management. He again asked for space, so he moved out of our bedroom and into the spare bedroom in our flat. I also booked a flight home for a few weeks to visit my own family. I'm set to leave in 4 days. We were making some good progress this week, enjoying time with each other, going to the park, just generally trying to reconnect. After sleeping in the spare bed for 5 days, he decided to move back into our room, and I was very happy about that. Up until 2 days ago, I genuinely thought that we were going to make it through this. Things came to a head last night. I received my grades back from the school. I'm very proud to say that I got an A on my research project, and one of my urban design proposals has also been nominated by my school for a gold award from the RIBA. I'm incredibly proud. This year was definitely the most difficult in my entire life, and I did not expect to do as well as I actually did. I literally just wept when I get my results. And just for a quick Google of RIBA, it says Royal Institute of British Architects. OP continues. I sent my SO a long message letting him know how I did and about the nomination, but more importantly thanking him for being there to support me through my degree. I told him I loved him and I was glad we were working together on our relationship. He came home that night fuming. He was so angry. He just yelled at me for basically an hour about my lack of confidence in my own work and about how I didn't need to miss his grandmother's funeral. He told me he hated me, and after that I sort of just numbed out. I don't really remember much of what he said after that. I just stopped talking and listening. My final end of the year show is happening this week. It's a huge celebration of the students' work. I filled an entire wall to exhibit my architectural work and my research results. During the end of the year show, a lot of people find jobs, so it's important for us to be there to network and talk about our projects with people in the industry. I did this for my boyfriend last year when he exhibited his own work. I spent 6 hours at that evening talking to different people about how amazing his work was. This morning he told me not to expect him to come home tonight because he needs to go to the gym. I'm flying home in 4 days and I can tell he just wants me to leave and never come back, which is what I am doing. I've stuck with all my promises that I made to him. I've supported him as best as I could and I've began seeing a therapist. He hasn't even called his GP to get a referral to a therapist yet. He doesn't want to fix our relationship. He just wants to keep me around to pay half of our rent and to use as a punching bag. So we are over. I just paid my final half of the rent and I'm moving back to my home country. I was originally only planning on returning for a few weeks, but with this Brexit vote looking so grim, I don't really see the point of being in the UK anymore. Why return and find a job here when I will most likely be asked to leave in a year? I like the UK and I love my boyfriend, but it seems neither wants me, so I'm going home to take care of myself. And to me in this, I just feel like it was the correct decision in the end. From the update, it just feels like, to me anyway, that OP is gonna just have this thrown back in their face time and time again in the future, and partner isn't gonna forgive it for whatever reason, whether that's them still grieving or what. I don't think they're gonna forgive it for now, and I don't think OP deserves to be treated this way. But Ananas, they ask a question on that, said, just out of curiosity, does he already know that you won't come back? If so, what was his reaction? If no, do you plan on telling him somehow? Also, I think you made the right choice. I can certainly imagine that he will come around at one point and realize how idiotic his behavior was. But I can totally see why you wouldn't want to wait for this, since this day could also never come. Opie says I told him this morning. I think he was kind of numb after everything he said last night, so he just agreed. He's been texting me all day from work saying that he's sorry and that he will come to my show, but I replied that he's no longer invited. I'm staying at a friend's place for the next 4 days. I'm just in the middle of packaging all my clothes now. I don't care about all the furniture in the flat, and I'm leaving my bike and instruments with my friend, so she can use the bike and take care of my instruments. And there was one more comment that asked OP how the event went, and OP says it went very well, thank you. I went and got a lot of compliments and handed out a lot of business cards. I ended up staying only until the end of the show. I didn't go to the after party with the rest of my class. It's a crazy party and I usually love it, but I just wasn't feeling it last night. So I went back to my friend's place and chilled with her and her sister. And that was OP's final comment on the issue, so I can only think that they've moved on and hopefully living their best lives right now. And I always find it difficult, not difficult talking about grief and things, but just how messed up it can make you. Like I've discussed in many of my videos, and you're probably sick of hearing it, to be quite honest. You know, I lost a whole bunch of family members, like God knows how many funerals I've been to in the last few years. The absolute roller coaster of emotions and numbness, pain, crying, breaking down in tears randomly. It can absolutely tear you apart. But at the same time, you know, whenever we talk about stories like this and we say mental health, grief, whatever it may be, is no excuse. Just be an arsehole or be verbally abusive or whatever that we were seeing in this particular story. There's not an excuse for that. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's have another story. And our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from Not a Mazda, who says, am I the arsehole for blowing up at my pregnant sister? My 27 female sister, 26 female, is amazing but kind of spoiled / high roller type. Our parents have lots of money. My sister has never been shy about using it / asking for it, as far as I know. Her wedding cost around $80,000. She got a nose job costing $10,000, a new car costing around $60,000, bridal shower $8,000, down payment for house, I don't know how much that was. She tried to take over the family business, where I was excluded completely, but it didn't work out. She also doesn't work at all and hasn't for a couple of years. She's a hard worker when she does work. Also, my parents gave her a $300K empty property. I never asked my parents for literally anything, although of course I've never gone without. School paid for, car for myself, etc. They give me money sometimes to even it out. I work 2 jobs. I've been given a lot, to be honest, but not nearly the amount she has, although they are working on it. Brings me to the issue. My sister is pregnant and holding a baby shower. I found a nice way to do it, how I would personally want it. Less expensive, homey, cozy, etc. Someone got involved with planning and somehow the event ended up at an expensive steakhouse for 60 people and I'm splitting the cost with someone else. My parents are not paying for it for a couple of different reasons. Although it's not costing as much as I thought, I'm fed up at my sister's attitude and blew up at her. Of course I'm paying for something she will benefit from and it will be the most expensive thing possible. We got into a fight and I brought up all of this stuff. She pointed out all the ways I benefit, like living rent-free at my parents for now, but she always had the option to. I feel like the arsehole for blowing up at my pregnant little sister and viewing money this way, when I should be celebrating this milestone. Am I the arsehole? Ho Adams asked a question on this one. They say, you say someone got involved with planning and somehow the event ended up at an expensive steakhouse, and then says, who is this someone? You seem to be blaming this on your sister, but why? Did she demand the event to be at the expensive steakhouse? For the moment you're the arsehole, it seems like you've gotten anything from your parents you've asked for / needed. Free school, free car, free rent, free random money sometimes. So any disparity between you and your sister seems to not really be her fault. This comment tickled me from Wannabe, who says, this is irrelevant, but are your parents open to adopting another adult? Lol. Baby Rex quotes sections and says, unless you're leaving out information, feel free to add it if you are. You blew up at your sister because someone else changed your shower plans. Is that correct? Because you say you're fed up of your sister's attitude, but did not give a single example of her having an attitude the whole post. You choose to be the martyr and not use your parents' money. So you admit they pay for your school, living situation, and give you money to even it out. That's on you and your choice, but you haven't shown us that your sister has actually wronged you at all. You're the arsehole. A bunch of character says you're the arsehole. It doesn't sound like your sister did anything wrong. It's not her fault that she asked for money and you don't. It sounds like your parents provided for you and you just have a superiority complex about not asking for money. Also, how did someone somehow change the plans? When were you hosting? That doesn't sound real. Also, you made the baby shower something you would like rather than something your sister would like. If anything, she should be blowing up at you. You sound immature. Now, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. Never forget how important you are to this channel. And, you just taking your time out of your day. I really respect that. Time is so important. So thank you so much for it. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.